Welcome to Positive Philter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career, with a little self-help along the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls and people. I'm back with another episode, a special episode of Positive Philter. Everyone is a special guest to me, but this one is especially special because it's got like a throwback to when we were kids, man. You know, the big bro, someone that I looked up to. So before we get in this episode, I'm gonna just get a little set up. Now, this gentleman was supposed to join me pre-pandemic. We had an episode, me, Jeffron, and Marcus, about the old days at our Christian school, which we won't get into that, but I will say that episode led to Mr. Staten coming back in my life, and really, and you know how it is, and we reconnected because
right.
He was a little shocked at how life had changed us and our perception of that time.
I'm sure.
As kids,
I know.
Yeah, he was quite shocked. Jeffron, me, Marcus was chopping it up. I think that was literally. It seems like it flew by like 3 years ago. So really time has flown.
Wow, it has, yeah.
It was out in Burke. But before I get into it, I am joined by Adrian Ferguson. This gentleman, I will let him get a more spiel, but I just want to say entrepreneur, father, Omega man, which I won't hold against him. But he's a Renaissance man. And I don't know, we haven't seen each other physically in quite some time, but I just know that our minds are synced. In his writing, the things that he posts on social media, we're just definitely aligned. But before I get into this episode, Adrian, give the listeners a little bit more of an introduction about yourself.
Well, hey man, thank you for having me. It has been a long time. We go way back, elementary school back. So I've known the different phases and stages of Philip Wilkerson. So it's good to see you well and thriving in this chapter of your life. So a little bit about me, man. I'm from Northern Virginia, as you know, but the audience may not know. Born and raised in Northern Virginia. Went to school here in Alexandria. Went to college in Atlanta, Georgia. After college, came back home. Got into the federal government cycle, just like a lot of people here in the area. Really had to kind of figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And like most 20-somethings do. And kind of one thing led to another, and talking to and meeting a lot of artists and a lot of creatives in the city and DC and the DMV, and just knowing a lot of creatives from my family and the background, coming from a musical artistic background, I just really felt like there was a lack of affordable, intimate, creative space in DC. And talking more about people and musicians and painters, they was like, I can't find anywhere that I can perform in that I can afford. I can't create or rehearse anywhere that I can afford. So I wanted to create a space called Art of Noize to solve that problem, and to be that intimate, eccentric event space where people can perform, collaborate, rehearse, record, screen, all the above, and even have private events.
I love that. And one of my things, obviously, you're way more hip than me. I'm pretty sure you were exposed to this in Atlanta, all this creative spaces. Like, where did this come from? Like, what was some models? Like, how, honestly, I never even heard of that. I never knew that was an idea of like, I got my own space in a studio. People come to my studio or at your space. Like, how did that come to fruition? What was some influences on that?
Well, actually, man, there was a place there's an area in DC called Blagden Alley. It's actually still there. And I knew a very well-known artist and an entrepreneur, a well-known business guy. He had a loft, an apartment there. And everybody would always come, everybody from the arts community and music community. Like, he's well-known in the city. And everybody would just kind of stop by, and like on their way somewhere or coming from somewhere, and it was like a cool vibe. It was like real kind of bohemian. He would actually have performances there sometimes, readings, and I was like, hey, this is really cool. I was like, I could do this, and I could have that kind of a alternative flex space where we can use it to do, whatever we could do, and they're kind of feel an artistic need. So I feel like my spark was kind of ignited. It was always there, but it was kind of like further ignited with Blagden Alley, I would say, in DC, and hanging out there.
So what was some of the early steps? Obviously, you transitioned federal government. So what was like, go back to day one. What was what did you do the first day? Like first time you just went around like you were apartment shopping and looked for a space first, or did you brainstorm a piece of paper first? What was some of the first steps?
It was actually a piece of paper. You know what I'm saying? Every great thing it has to be written down. It has to be written down, and it has to come to life on a piece of paper. Either typed, written, and you have to give it life, and you have to look at it every day, multiple times a day. You have to think about it every day. It needs to be on your body as a part of it in order for it to grow. And the first thing was me writing down the name of what I wanted it to be. And I folded up that paper, and I carried that paper everywhere in my pocket for a long time. And then as I kept going along, I was like, well, let me add this, and I would add, and I would write to it. I would say, hey, a living room space, a performance space, a meeting space, a rehearsal space, and then I just kept writing things down, adding things to the paper. And then once I did that, that kind of transformed into a business plan. As far as doing research and seeing what was around here in the area, who is doing what, what's their model, what are they not doing, scouring the market, and to be honest, landing in Petworth was kind of like happenstance. I was looking all over the DMV for space, and a particular retail space came available in Petworth, and I went to see it. And the stars kind of aligned, and we had our paperwork from DC government, and we were no longer just an idea. We were a legitimate business, with a business license and a tax ID number, and all these type of things that you need to operate. And they liked our business plan. They liked what we were doing. And they said, hey, we want to give you guys a shot. So, and then, early stages of business, and even today, it's still, I would call like growing pains, because what happens is that you go into business with these ideas and, to think, okay, well, this is going to be, we're going to provide this service. We're going to do this. And it's just people are going to come and support and do all this other stuff. And it really doesn't work like that. There's a cost associated with operating a business. And every business is different, from, employee costs to various costs, overhead type costs that I have to pay, from, which electricity, sewer, property tax, all these things that you got to consider, that you kind of know, but you don't really understand until you get into the actual business of it. And then it's like, well, how many rentals do I need a month? How many times do I need to rent the space a month in order to make rent? And then, understanding, scouring the market on price point, and, if my competitors are charging this, what can I charge? And then if I go lower, will that even be advantageous to even make a profit? So there's different things that you have to kind of try and plug and play with your numbers, with your prices, with your website, and you wear a lot of hats as an entrepreneur that I think most people aren't really ready for when you start a business. Everybody kind of says it until you get but it's until you get in it, in which you really kind of understand that, hey, this is harder than it looks.
I love it. One of the things I'm always curious about too, and I want to jump back because it kind of triggered me a little bit, was that from idea on paper to fruition, it took me quite some time. I remember even with the podcast, I thought of it, slept on it, asked my friends what would the name be. Like I had the name Positive Filter,
right,
And I recorded my first episode December 2016, and I didn't release it publicly to the world till April 2017. So about 4 months, and I would record it, unrecord it, whatever. So talk about that, putting that paper in your pocket. How long did you hold on to it and then like maybe start sharing it with other people where it was like your individual idea till it was more of a public idea?
Right. So even Art of Noize was an idea for me even in college. From early 2000s. Art of Noize was an idea of mine. And it went away, put it on the back burner, of course. And I would say like I didn't write it down on a piece of paper and say I want to get serious about it. That was about 2014 time frame, 2014, 2015, where I said, you know what, I think I want to do that. So, it's kind of one of those things where I want to be, I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to do it, I have to do it. There's steps to do it, and then I started writing it down. And then there was, this is not my first business. So there was other things in a previous business in which I learned and I saw, and I was like, this could be cool, expanded upon. This didn't work, or this works and this doesn't work. So, I started writing that down around, I would say 2015, and really kind of developing the idea from the paper pocket to an actual plan.
What about, obviously people buying in and, just others that are right there in the process. Just take us back. What did your wife think, or just maybe your closest friends think? And not the pocket part, right? When it was like almost creeping out of the pocket. I love that.
Well,
out of the pocket.
It almost creeping out of the pocket. Like, my wife has always been kind of supportive, even though I think I'm more of the artsy creative that my wife is. But I really, it's something that you're hesitant to share because it's fragile, it's really fragile. It's yours, and it's a baby, and the idea of, and then facing that where you're sharing your idea and then people don't get it, and then not only the people that don't, your friends don't get it, and then because they don't use that side of their brain, or that part of their brain, they're not the creative type, and then you start going, well, how are you going to make money, and it's like, well, how are you going to do this? What are you going to charge? What are you going to do? And it's like, well, I have to, and it's like, well, starting to explain it, and after having to explain it over and over and over again, you start to actually kind of learn it, Yeah. And the figure is like, I'm of the opinion that if I couldn't explain my business to help somebody explain, to make it, maybe my business idea wasn't ready yet, and I had to go through that too, where it was like I was trying to explain it, and then I was even tripping myself up.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's this, and it's like, well, wait, let me go back to the drawing board and flesh this out, So, and it just, nothing is overnight. Even today, we're still climbing the mountain, trying to get there, trying to get past that, get to that 5-7 year mark, for a small business, which is monumental, for a small business. And it's just overcoming a lot. We're inundated with so many distractions, okay? And we can't expect, and we have a lot of expectations on our friends and family when we first start a business, and we think everybody's just going to run a full sprint to stop what they're doing and help us build this business and give it to where we want to get. And you understand, it's like, no, it doesn't work like that. This is your dream. This is your baby. This is your passion. And no one is going to love it as much as you do. Nobody's ever going to appreciate it and care for it as much as you do. And the sooner you learn that, I think the more effective you'll be in business.
I love that, because I was about to say, just putting the fast forward. I mean, you've been doing it, and so it is successful. But you talked about weathering or still continuing to climb that mountaintop, and that really directly spoke to where we are right now. Like, we are in a very, I'm gonna use the most generic term we said, unprecedented times. Everyone says that, right?
Because it is. But it is though.
But you are in a small business in an industry that I would believe is very lenient to people and space and togetherness. So you are, we were, I don't know if we're done. I guess we can assume we're getting out of it. We're halfway out of the global pandemic. And so you are continuously climbing, but you're still at the doors open. So can you speak to maybe the earlier challenges of, like, you're doing it, and was it February 2020 hits?
Right.
In that time.
So, I mean, it was like hitting a brick wall, man. I mean, it was really like, business was picking up for us. People were renting our space. People were using it for multiple things, multiple, private events, public events. I mean, word was getting out, and we were excited. And then the pandemic hit. And then it was like we were shut down for, quite a few months. Mm-hmm. And it was then where we had to evolve. Okay, we were like, okay, we have to evolve or we're going to drown. And we was like, well, how do we evolve? And I was like, well, we're going to have to start, we started utilizing our walls as gallery space some months before, right? And I was like, well, we need to lean and focus more on art sales and retail and creating a revenue stream. So what we did is that we created, we kind of beefed up our website and added and say, we're going to start selling art online. And that created, a money stream for us. And we've been actually relying very heavily on art sales throughout the pandemic. Not being able to rent the space like we were planning to, and have intended to, has really hurt us financially. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we've taken the hit financially because renting the space and being a rental space was actually our bread and butter, and then us having to pivot to more of a art gallery type space, was challenging, and it is challenging. And, to say, because here's the thing, somebody's going to rent space before they want to come buy a piece of art. Okay. There's bigger need for somebody, not to say that people don't want to buy art, because people do want to buy art. And I've seen it, I can't say that, but people are, it just on the list of priority is that we find that more people are looking for space to have a party, have a performance, have a workshop, to have a meeting, to have a rehearsal, have a photo shoot, video shoot, first, as opposed to, okay, well, let me go see some art and maybe buy something. It's just how it goes in this area, in DC. So, having to combat that, and then in addition to, providing a place and a platform for artists during the pandemic, which was important, and having our walls as gallery space so that they can stay alive, it was kind of like a let's help each other, is that I'll provide the wall space in the space, but if we got to get the foot traffic together, this is a group of it, let's get the foot traffic in here together, to build upon this. And it's hard. Because even though I'm an art lover and an art appreciator, DC, there's a lot of people with PhDs in art, and
I was about to say, speak to that. Like, I think we got
high-powered art people. Yeah. You eventually, you learn the lingo and you meet the people and, and things like that. And, you study and you read and you pick up on things, but then it's also about your team. It's also about having people on your team who are stronger in areas that you're not. People on the team, and then connecting and collaborating with people who may have those inroads, who do have those networks, who do have that. So it's just finding those right partnerships, which is also taking time to acquire that team and acquire those type of expertise, to do that.
So one of the things I was thinking about, but though I've seen, I've always followed along, but it's starting to slowly open back up. I see you starting to, celebrating you. I see you having people doing like documentaries there and filming. So I guess in a sense, when did you start knowing it was, obviously besides the CDC and all that, how about you as an individual, when you were like, yo, let me start figuring out, now I can get back to my bread and butter? And do you still hold on to that now? Like, I do have this as an art space, but essentially my guiding light is I want to get back to the original vision, of that, what it is.
Absolutely. So if anything, this has actually enhanced my vision and added on value to our business. Because one, my personal goal for Art of Noize is to have a multi-level brick and mortar, or at least several properties, where one level is used as an art gallery, art space, another level where you can have more workshop meeting type space, and then another area where you can have like performers, like theater, musical type performance space, and people to be able to utilize the space concurrently, at the same time. And maybe different rooms, different levels, and to have all those kind of things in the one where you can come and have a photo shoot, video shoot, and then even have the equipment there that you can get the stuff processed, edited, cut, and read right there in-house. You can do a one-stop shop all right there. And that's the kind of the long-term goal that I'm working on right now. It's just right now, it's working with the space that I have, and sharpening that tool and sharpening it, getting the procedure right, getting the business right, before we start to branch out into these other areas and start getting different locations. So, I will say that art and showcasing and exhibiting art has kind of earned its place into Art of Noize, and will be a part of Art of Noize for the foreseeable future.
Wow. So like, it's almost like the pandemic forced a new addition to it, but still the laser focus is still on that ultimate goal, the multi-level and more the live stuff. But you're just not say making do in a bad sense, but like, I think a lot of the pandemic has forced us to do different things. Like now more and more people are doing hybridish stuff. They could have done it all along, but they're forced to. So I guess as a creative space, you could have had an art studio, but now you're adding that art gallery, but you're adding that to that.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Right.
What is, when you think for someone else that is hesitant, and I don't know, I love that you're doing it. What would you say to someone that is hesitant to be more creative and more artistic? Honestly, be honest, I have no background in musical or broadcast and all that stuff. I'm assuming, I know you can dance. I don't know, but I don't know if you got the best vocals. I ain't gonna shame you about being the best singer, but you are very involved in art stuff. And so can you talk about that difference about being creative and not necessarily being an artist? For instance, like I love music, I appreciate it. I feel like I am creative, but I am not a musician. So can you talk about that too?
Well, absolutely. Because I feel like a lot of people are artists, but they haven't even realized it, or they can't come to terms with it. A lot of people are artists in the sense that they're not traditional artists, but they have an artist-driven spirit and an appreciation for art. I would say that your art is interesting in a way is because it's once that you start kind of walking in it and fulfilling it and honing it, you start meeting people of the like mind. You know, you eventually kind of what they say, find your tribe, you know, of people who will accept your art, you know, who will pull that artistic creative side out of you and embrace it, you know, in which I think that's the reason why we hold on to our artistic or we bottle it up is because we're not around people who appreciate it, okay, and who can draw it out and who can actually make it better and improve upon it. So we keep it to ourselves. And I would say to anybody is don't be ashamed. Don't be ashamed of your art and don't be mad when people don't get it. That's the biggest thing that I would say is that be creative even when no one is watching. Um, you know, it means it costs you nothing to have like a little notebook or something that you could pull out of your pocket when an idea comes, you know, for a script or for a podcast or for a new painting or a mural or whatever it is that you're trying to do. Most people who are judging you or who are naysayers are too afraid to even try. Right? They're too afraid to try. And whether you succeed or you fail, they're gonna have something to say. So it's not for them, it's for you.
I love it. I was about to say too, like there was an integration about the science. Like I was listening to a TED talk. I think it's the president of Virginia State University, and he was talking about STEM. It should really be, you know, STEAM. That there should be an infusion of that artistic, and force people to be artistic because it also enhances science. Like it mirrors each other, right?
Absolutely, it goes hand in hand.
It goes hand in hand. So even physicists sing, you know, or appreciate music. It will, and then you'll be more creative when you're doing science and how they build off each other. Can you speak to like maybe your muses, your creative influences, and then how that bled over into the business? So like, you know, maybe when you listen to music, or you feel like that really enhances you, like you appreciating art or you appreciating music has fueled your Art of Noize ventures in the logic
absolutely.
of business.
Absolutely. Like I listen to music all day, every day. And I even collect vinyl records and listen to vinyl records, and you know, I'm into it. Music of all backgrounds. And I find that music that they don't hear on the radio necessarily, no shades of the music that they play on the radio, because everything has its time under the sun. But I find that the more that I discovered new music, the more creative I became. And the more kind of in tune with my creative side that I became. You know, the more I started going to record stores and buying records and taking them home to listen to some random record, 70s rock record that I picked up you know, I was like, okay, well, I can appreciate it because it developed my appreciation for art and different types of art. So I would definitely say that music has been instrumental in my development of Art of Noize and where Art of Noize has been this time. I mean, even to have performances in the space, you know, I mean, to have different programming coming up with us music-centered programming that we're going to be doing. I mean, music is key to my existence and to my development. So,
and I want to speak to that, like that gravity, like you said, that over time as an artist, as a creative person, just like a magnet, people start coming to you and you start meeting new people. So can you just speak to, you know, ever since opening your space, maybe some examples of just random people coming into your life that's like, wow, like I never would have met this person unless this creative endeavor existed, and then how that's been beneficial moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I've met a lot of people actually like that, where I can appreciate to say, you know, being on this journey, you meet a lot of people. You meet a lot of people, a lot of creatives, a lot of artists, a lot of art enthusiasts. I would say the guy, one of my people that was like, you know what, I'm on the right path. I would say it would be one of my DJs that I have for an event. His name, he goes by the name Afro Soul. And I was like, we were talking, and when he first came over to Art of Noize to check out the space, he was like, he got it. He immediately got it. It clicked, and he was like, I get it, And he was like, this is a New York vibe. Like, he's a New York guy, and he was like, this is something that you will see in Brooklyn, or in Soho or something like that, And he was like, okay, I see where you're going with this. And I think talking to him and just meeting more people, and not just DJs, but painters and photographers. And it was like, I was like, yeah, you know what? This is for me, this is for me. And they kind of used it to say, hey, what you're doing is great. What you're doing is fantastic. I mean, it's working, and it just kind of drives, because some days are better than others, some days are better than others. Every day ain't a great day, I mean, and sometimes we go a long while without selling an art piece, and I mean, or a long while without somebody renting the space, especially during COVID, so I mean, I look back at those conversations and those interactions, pre-pandemic, and then kind of keep that fire going to say, hey, I'm on the right track, I'm doing the right thing,
So have you, pre-pandemic, or I don't know, during, have you gone to the New York, the Soho, whatever? Have you seen it? Have you been inspired and seen another space like the DJ was talking about and say, wow, this is very similar, and not in a bad way, like this is cool that this kind of space exists in other cities across the United States and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, pre-pandemic, I did, what I'm saying? And it was great. And I mean, it was fun. And it was like, you know what, this works. You know what I'm saying? It works, and it's dope, and I want more of it. And I want to do it in DC. And I think it would work in DC, because I don't see a lot of places like this in DC.
So can we talk about the diversity or representation of these kind of spaces? Is this a very rich kind of thing? Like mostly rich people get to do this, or a very white thing? Like what's the diversity look of creative spaces like this, similar to yours?
Well, I think
anecdotal. Like, you don't have to throw no numbers, just
right. No, it's I think it's all kind of demographic based. I mean, there's a lot of creative spaces, I would say, in a good number of places that do a multidisciplinary type spaces. I would say there's probably more other spaces that cater towards maybe the other demographic, than Art of Noize, you know what I'm saying? And we're not just a specific type of demographic, but I am African American, and I mean, I don't discourage or turn away anybody who's not an African American. Certainly not going to do that. Everybody's welcome at Art of Noize, but you really don't find a lot of creative type spaces for us, and these type of community type spaces for us anymore in the city. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's important to kind of have an Art of Noize, is to kind of maintain that culture and that diversity, and to be a piece of that melting pot.
I was about to say, like, we're talking about you said Northern Virginia. Like, has there ever been a moment that crept in and was like, man, let me just take this out to Fairfax, let me take this out to Loudon, let me take this out to somewhere else?
Absolutely.
And have this come to me, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I mean, absolutely. Absolutely. So, again, with having the multi-structure buildings, my goal is to have locations. So, a location, in DC, a location in Virginia. So absolutely, to get that market out there, because the reality is that everybody doesn't come to DC, everybody doesn't come to DC, and DC doesn't go out to the burbs, So, I mean, I've had several people say, hey, when you finally get your Art of Noize in VA, I'm there. And I was like, well, I hold you to that, so.
So I think we got a couple more questions. One question, obviously, for me, what has been very helpful is connecting with other podcasters and having a podcaster network, and particularly Black podcasters. I'm on GroupMe's and Facebook, and I get some help and assistance and all that. Do you have like a peer support or group or resource for you to have other people to bounce business ideas, but more specifically business ideas as it relates to this niche? Because I know that yours is quite unique, but just some peers that
I
kind of do around you.
I do. I really do. I have a lot of gallery friends and type of spaces where we feed off of each other. So we run stuff by each other. A lot of type of places, that rental spaces in the city that we work with, that we sometimes collab with. Things that it's like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, and then they go, oh, that's good, or maybe you should think about putting this, or have you thought about this? Or they say, yeah, well, this is not, what I'm saying? Well, it's like, well, and not to disparage you, it's just to sometimes you need that bounce back to flush things out, and, whether we're talking about, how do we stay relevant during the pandemic, as an event space? How do we tap into the collector market, the art collector market, or further tap into the collectors market? What can we do to entice people to come to spaces, to actually come out, physically, foot traffic, things that so I am very gracious to have a growing network of people that I can say that I can call and reach out to.
I love it. And then I got my last question before I hit you with the random question is that, let's say post-pandemic, you saying that 5 to 7 years, right? What is, your next benchmark for yourself? Is it a year benchmark, or is it I stayed open during a pandemic, that's straight up a benchmark? What is the next benchmark for you?
So the next benchmark for me, I would say, would be getting back to renting the space multiple times a week. That's a realistic benchmark for me. It's like a kind of a sooner than later type of thing. I would say after that, after getting, because at one point we were having like 3 to 4 rentals a week, with people doing stuff at our space. Getting back to that momentum, if not more, would make perfect sense. And then the next benchmark I would say for that would be, I would say, between, not to say the brick and mortar, but then I would say having performances and musical type performances, constant type of entertainment coming through the space, and like kind of in-house programming, building that up, to increase, monthly, bi-monthly, weekly type of programming, that kind of, push out our brand. And I would say those are the kind of the immediate benchmarks that I'm looking to do.
I love it.
My further benchmark would be to have my own building.
Yes. That'd be dope. That'd be great. A whole building. So this is the part of the show called Shot for Shot. You get to ask me any random question. I get to ask you one. Do you want to go first? I'll go first.
You go first.
All right. I literally just thought of it in my head as I was talking to you. So I literally was on a panel with a bunch of Omegas. And so, I chose a different path, but I do always love the saying, friendship is essential to the soul.
Right.
I thought that was dope. My dad thinks about that too. So can you explain, why is friendship essential, and what does that mean to you?
So friendship to me is a kind of almost like a spiritual bond. It's not even a friend. Is sometimes could be closer than a family member, depending on who you are and your life path and your experiences. A friend is someone who is going to challenge you, who's constantly challenging, not to compete with you, but to sharpen you, and sharpen each other. So I think friendship to me is a friend is someone who who doesn't always like me, but they love me enough to tell me that they don't like me at times, and vice versa.
I love that. And you get to choose them. I love that quote too. Families, people, friends or family get to choose, because then you don't have to be around them. So if they stick around, that means it's really, they have to put effort, because they don't have to.
Because they want to.
Yeah, they want to. They clearly do not have to. Like, there's no blood, like physical force structure for them to stay around, but they do anyway, and they make an effort. So I definitely agree with that. All right, so what's your question for me?
So question for you is, what's a good question? Who are you listening to right now?
Oh,
music
okay.
wise.
Like right now?
Yeah.
I mean, J. Cole, my favorite rapper of all time.
Okay.
I definitely, as soon as off season dropped, I stayed up, past my bedtime, and I listened to it on that Friday at 12:01, and I just been playing it. And then I'll play something else. Like, I'll play other stuff, and then I'll always play it all the way through, and then I'll play something else. I don't know. I think he's my favorite artist. I don't saying he's the greatest artist, but he's my personal favorite. And I think the reason why I think he's always been my favorite artist for me is that he was like a normal person that was just extremely skilled in rap. Like, when I say that normal, like, he didn't grow up in a major market area. He grew up in Fayetteville. He went to college, and he still pursued music. And then, like, I always watch his documentaries where people are like, yo, you really gonna do music? Why don't you go to college and like stay with college? And it just seems like someone seems like he'd be like one of my friends that just happened to be really good at rap. Like, he was a normal person that just had exceptional skill. But then when I listen to his documentaries, it wasn't just like he's naturally skilled. He actually put a lot of effort and time. And I think he does similar to what you think. He writes and writes and writes and writes and writes. And he I guess he put time and effort to be good at something. And so I find that very admirable too. So I don't know, that definitely was the most stand answer I could give like about anyone. But I have no denying that I am a stan. I think he is one of the, if only, artists that if he comes to town for a concert, I go flat out. I go to a concert. I missed the one I beat my head. I didn't go to the Forest Hills Drive one, but I did go to KOD, and I did go to For Your Eyes Only. And when off season comes, mask or not, I don't care. I'm going. Shout out to my frat, Ryan Griffin. He's my partner in crime, because he's going to put it in his cart, because I'm not going to be on the computer. So he can purchase the tickets for all of us, and I'll give him some money. But we're going. That's what it is. So that's who I'm listening to. And then I randomly switched to FM station. I've been listening to classic rock, like just randomly. Like the other day I was late and I was listening to was it Crazy? Was it Crazy Over You? And like it was like what's that song? Paranoid by Ozzy Osbourne and all these songs. I was like, I don't know. I just listen to random stuff and then I go back to plugging into aux cord. So I switch it up.
I hear you, man. I hear you.
I don't know. I feel like I need to ask another one. And I definitely now want to switch it, because I feel like I want to be very interested. Who are you listening to nowadays?
Man, I'm outside of J. Cole. Freddie Gibbs. Willie the Kid. A couple of my favorites right now. They kind of remind me of that good 90s gritty hop, that kind of almost that Wu-Tang, just what hip hop was of our youth. But Freddie's got a little soul to him. You know what I'm saying? Freddie's got some soul. He's I'm watching his Tiny Desk concerts and his other type of performances. I like the fact that I feel like Freddie was raised around music like I was. His parents are older. His friends grew up in a house where you had to listen to what they listened to. And when no playing with the radio back in the day. And, all this stuff I kind of hear his influences in his music, the R&B, the soul, and it definitely comes out in his music, and I can identify with that, especially being a younger man and having an appreciation for older music. So
I love it. That's why, yeah, that's what the classic rock does for me, and that which I wasn't even.
yeah,
I don't think anyone was listening to, but I just feel like I need to get like a acid watch jeans or something and get like a Corvette and I don't know, just it's cool. So this has been a great episode. Obviously, this is a great time. I knew that as a creative person, I knew I was going to get you on here eventually. Pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, this was a long time coming.
oh yeah,
This made me very happy. So obviously, just as a way to support, I would love for you, this part of the show called Shout Outs and Plugs, to share and shout out anyone you want to show love to, but particularly any way where people can follow up with you or anything that you're working on, plugs, at which I'll put in the show notes so that they can follow along and catch up with you and get connected. So the stage is set. Shout outs and plugs.
Well, first off, shout out to the AON crew, Vicky, Kiana, Buck, Kev, my people. We out here going in my day ones. We out here building this thing brick by brick. So I got to shout them out. And all the love and the supporters in the community, collaborators, shout them out. You can definitely learn more about Art of Noize on our website, which is www.artofnoizedmv.com. That's ARTOFNOIZEDMV.com. Our Instagram is at Art of Noize DMV, which is again ARTOFNOIZEDMV. And Twitter, Art of Noize DMV 17.
That's great. I'll make sure to put all that in the show notes. Well, Adrian, this has been a pleasure. As I said earlier,
thank you.
It's crazy. We come a long way. I thought about this too, and this before I close out. I thought about randomly how we went to that camp I was in the 8th grade and you were already a freshman.
Oh my goodness, the James Madison joint.
The James Madison camp. Because what was crazy about it, I had to go scrounge it. I found my old book, like my book bag, and it had the little name tag, Philip Wilkerson and all that. And then come to find out, like Byron Bullock, who ran that, was the alpha, and all the camp counselors, I run into them now. They were college guys, camp counselors, and now they're like, we know each other. So it's just crazy how that world came full circle, which just makes me believe, similar to what you said about that gravity, is that, maybe we haven't seen each other in a while, but me and you check in, or we see each other. I see Jeffron randomly. I see Marcus randomly. There's something about, I don't know, just as you said earlier, the energy that people put out, you just randomly run into each other again,
Absolutely.
So that's crazy. It just, that book, I kept it. My wife was like, you're a hoarder. I was like, yo, I guess I am, because I randomly have this. And I'm keeping it. I'm keeping this beat up bag.
Keep it
for as long as you can. That joke was cheap. It was a cheap bag because it has like lined with like that cheap plastic on the inside. Like, because he had to make like 100 of those things. Like,
I know, dude, y'all in 8th, 9th grade. You're not getting the top end. Like, you got some kids, man.
No, he getting a Dollar Tree bag.
Right.
Yes, but hey,
you're gonna make it work.
You make it work.
Yeah,
so shout out to him, the educator, which informed me. So this has been great. Everyone, if you're listening to the show, please support Art of Noize. I'm going to get there. I'm going to get in there one day. I'm not. I might just drive up there randomly and just be outside on a day where I have to work from home. Who knows? I'm going to be there. I'm going to visit because I need to definitely put what I said into practice. But if you are in the DMV area, please check out Art of Noize Space. If you're an art collector, or you like to just spend money on art, please check out the pieces. I've seen that on Facebook too. It's great. Please just continue to, even just at bare minimum, engage on social media and follow along, because that can also be a way to support people, and it's free 99. So please support Art of Noize. Please support Adrian and his endeavors. I think through that support, small businesses such as his will weather the storm of the pandemic and make it through because of the support of a community. So please do so. If you like this episode, please share it with a family member or friend. If you want to leave a voicemail for a podcast, it's 571-336-6560. That's 571-336-6560. That's the podcast hotline. Sharing positivity is a movement, and we're out. Thank you for listening to Positive Philter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity a Movement. Thanks for listening.